In this video we're gonna focus on polygons, so let's go over some examples. A three-sided polygon is known as a triangle. That's the first one you need to know. A four-sided polygon is known as a quadrilateral. Now there's a different types of quadrilaterals that you need to be familiar with. So let me give you a few of them. So this is another. A four-sided polygon in this particular quadrilateral known as square. In a square, all sides are congruent and also the angles are congruent. They're all equal to 90 degrees. Now, what are some other quadrilaterals? In a rectangle, all angles are the same. They're all equal to 90 degrees and opposite sides are congruent. So not all four sides are the same, but the opposite sides are equal to each other. So that's a rectangle. It's another example of a quadrilateral or a polygon or a four-sided polygon. Quadrilateral or a four-sided polygon, another example is a trapezoid. So this right here is a two trapezoid. These two lines are parallel to each other, and if an isosceles trapezoid, then these two sides are congruent to each other. Could think for another shape is a rhombus. A rhombus is also a polygon, and the rhombus, all sides are congruent to, are not all congruent to each other like a square, but the angles are opposite. Angles are congruent to each other, and the diagonals of a rhombus bisect each other at 90 degrees. So that's a rhombus. Sided figure. What do you think the name of a five-sided polygon is? What would you say? A five-sided polygon is also known as a pentagon. Now, what about the six-sided polygon? How can we call what's the name for that six-sided polygon is called a hexagon? What about seven? What's the name for a seven-sided figure? So in this case, we have seven sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sided figure is also known as a heptagon. Now, some other ones you need to be familiar with. If you have 8, this is an octagon. And draw it this way, so that's an 8-sided figure. A polygon is a shape made up of straight lines that are connected to form a closed figure. One of the best examples for this one is a triangle and a rectangle. Congruent polygons are the polygons that have the same size and shape. This means that all corresponding angles and sides are equal, like for example the square and the triangle. The sum of the interior angles of a polygon, so the formula that you need to know is this. 180 times n minus 2 is equal to the sum of the interior angles of a polygon. So let's start with a triangle. So a triangle has a three-sided figure, so n is 3. So the sum of all interior angles is going to be 180 times 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 times 180 is 180. So the sum of all three angles of a triangle is 180. Knowing that, let's say if this side is 50 degrees, and this side is 60, what's the missing side? So the missing side is x. We know that the 50 plus 60 plus x has to add up to 180. And 50 plus 60 is 110, and the x is going to be 180 minus 110, so the missing angle has to be 70. So far, a triangle has a three angles inside of a triangle, must add to 180 degrees. Let's say a four-sided figure, like a quadrilateral. What is the sum of all interior angles? So the sum is going to be 180 times n minus 2. So that's gonna be 180 times 4 minus 2. Because this four-sided figure and 4 minus 2 is 2. So 180 times 2 is 360. So for the quadrilateral, the sum of all four angles is 360 degrees. Now, what about a five-sided figure, like a pentagon? What is the sum of all the interior angles? So, it's going to be 180. And since there is a 5 side, is going to be 5 minus 2. Now 5 minus 2 is 3, and 180 times 3 is 540. So let's put this together. So for the triangle, the sum of the three angles is 180 degrees. For the quadrilateral, the sum of the four interior angles is 360 degrees. Now, for a pentagon, the sum is 540 degrees. Do you see the pattern? So, what if we have, let's say, a hexagon? What is the sum of the interior angles? And what about, let's say, heptagon? What will be the sum? And then also, what about for an octagon? So you notice it is increasing by 180, so 540 plus 180 is equals to 720. So that's going to be the sum of all the interior angles for hexagon. And then if you add 180 to 720, that's going to be 900. So for octagon, octagon, yes, it is 900 degrees for that. And for octagon, it's gonna be 1080, and you could confirm it. This you can type in 180 times 8 minus 2, or 180 times 6 for an octagon. So 180 times 6 will give us 1080. So that's the sum of the interior angles for these types of figures. Now let's work on a practice form. So this is not a regular polygon, so keep that in mind. Now let's say this is equal to 12x plus 2. Let's call this an angle A, and let's say this is B, C, and angle D. Let's say that the angle B is 9x minus 1, and angle C is 10x plus 15, and angle D is 7x plus 2. So what is the measure of angle B? In order to do that, we need to find the value of x first. So how can we calculate the value of x? Now, if you recall, and what is the sum of the four-sided figure? So what is the sum of the interior angles of a quadrilateral? The sum is 360, 180 n, 180 times n minus 2, where in this example n is 4 since we have four-sided figures. So 180 times 2 is 360. So therefore, what tells us that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus angle C and the measure of angle D, all of these have to add up to 360. We could say that the 12x plus 2 plus 9x minus 1 plus 10x plus 15 plus 7x plus 2, all of these, they have to add up to 360. Let's combine the like terms. 12x plus 9x is 21x, 21x plus 10x is 31x, 31x plus 7x is 38x, 2 minus 1 is 1, 1 plus 15 is 16, 16 plus 2 is 18. So what we need to do now is to subtract both sides by 18. Now 360 minus 18, 360 minus 10 is 350. If you take away from that 350 minus 8, that's gonna be 342. So now let's divide both sides by 38. 342 divided by 38 is 9. So now that we have the value of x, we can calculate measure of any angle. So our goal is to find the measure of angle B and angle B is 9x minus 1, and x itself is 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. 81 minus 1 is 80. And so this is the measure of angle B. It's 80 degrees. Now, let's say we have a regular pentagon. My drawings are not perfect, but let's just go with it. Now, what is the measure of each interior angle of a regular pentagon? So, if we have a regular pentagon, that means all sides are congruent and the measure of each angle has to be the same. So, we know that the total interior angle is 180 times n minus 2. That is the sum of all of the interior angles, and since each angle is the same, to find the measure of each of those angles, there's 5 of them, we simply have to divide by n. So this will give you the measure of the interior angle if you have a regular pentagon or a regular polygon. For that, that's matter if all sides the same. If you don't have a regular polygon, this is not gonna work. So in case that, it's gonna be 180 times 5 minus 2 divided by 5. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and 180 times 3 is 540. So 540 is the sum of all 5 angles. So to find the measure of each interior, and we simply 2 over 5. Now 500 is divided by 5 is 140. 5 divided by 5 is 8. So the measure of each interior angle is going to be 108 degrees. And so that's the formula to calculate the measure of each interior angle for a regular. So let's work out for another example. So let's say if we have a regular hexagon, calculate the measure of each interior angle in this figure. So each interior angle is going to equal 180 times n minus 2, but we have a 6-sided figure divided by, so we could do is 180 by 6. If you want to, 180 divided by 6 is 30, and then 6 minus 2 is now 3 times 4 is 12, so 30 times 4 is 120. We just have to add the 0, so that's the measure of each interior angle of a regular hexagon.